The tale opens in an elegant setting, where lanterns cast a warm glow beneath the night sky. Within the confines of a dimly lit room, a young man dozed at a table, unaware of the enigmatic woman silently watching over him. Without warning, he opened his eyes, disoriented and unsure of his surroundings or the events that had led him there. The scene shifts to the future, where an average employee sits on a bus, engrossed in a book. The book in his hands told a sorrowful tale, ending with the main character suffering a crushing defeat at the hands of the antagonist. Frustrated by how the story concluded, the reader's anger boiled over, causing him to hurl his phone onto the floor of the bus. The moment the device lands on the floor, it emits an eerie purple glow. A brilliant glow enveloped the young man, leaving him utterly clueless about what was going on. At that instant, he suddenly found himself inhabiting the body of the main character from the novel he had been reading. A small, charming bird made its entrance, announcing to everyone that it was an AI system. The young man quickly believes the situation, as he has just acquired the well-known system that assists main characters. He notices that the tale has taken a different turn, as he now finds a rooster in place of the expected beautiful girl. The system notifies the young man about the existence of special cards and hidden treasures meant for him, filling him with a sense of invincibility. He recalls that the main character marries at the very start of the story, and chooses to take advantage of this moment. The man bounded eagerly toward his bride, his anticipation for their first night as a married couple shining in his expression. Without hesitating, he lifts the red veil, eager to see his wife's face. When the young man finally raises the veil, he is utterly stunned by the sight revealed to him. The woman, her hair strikingly white, referred to him as a prodigal husband, her tone laced with clear irritation. The young man's heart raced as he tried to explain that there had been a mistake, suddenly aware that he was not, in fact, the individual named Ling. He glanced around the room, confusion swirling in his mind as he tried to understand the deception and uncover the truth behind the situation. Suddenly, he realizes that he isn't the main character at all. Instead, he's just an ordinary person called Mo Yaling. Standing before him was Ling, the central villain of the story who eventually rose to the position of Empress. A playful smile spread across her lips as she walked toward the young man, addressing him as her husband in a teasing, alluring manner. The villain extended a drink to him, pointing out that the hour was growing late. The young man realizes that the drink in front of him has been tampered with, and he senses that, no matter what happens, she plans to harm him afterward. Desperation washed over him as he recalled that she intended to absorb every bit of his yin energy, leaving him completely exhausted. Without warning, a digital interface materialized before the villain, displaying his personal details and outlining a fresh assignment. He chooses to activate a swap card, exchanging his own drink for the one belonging to the sinister girls. A flash of blue light shone, and instantly the card exchanged whatever was inside the two cups. The small bird acknowledged that the exchange had gone as planned, feeling relieved that his beverage was now protected. Without pausing, the young man quickly finishes the entire drink in a single motion, aiming to prove his self-assurance amid the circumstances. He praised the quality of the wine before handing the second cup to the woman, inviting her to share in the drink with him. The villainess eyes him warily, her lips curling into a sly grin, yet her actions suggest she is about to take the offered drink. The young woman raised the cup to her lips and swallowed the liquid, unaware that the young man nearby silently celebrated, believing his scheme had succeeded without a hitch. Without warning, an intense heat washes over the woman, causing her skin to flush a deep, vivid red. She suddenly understood that she had picked up the incorrect cup, and the blame rested entirely on the young man. Seething with anger, the villain hurriedly exited the room and slammed the door so hard that it echoed through the hallway. She entered the bathroom and plunged into the water, hoping the coolness would offer relief from the intense heat. While soaking in the tub, she silently vows to take revenge on the man once the effects begin to fade. She found herself taken aback, realizing the potion worked far more powerfully than she had anticipated. As he stepped into the bathroom, he was taken aback by the striking appearance of the woman relaxing in the bathtub. The young man, exuding an air of confidence, insisted that it was time to set some new ground rules going forward. The girl floating in the water cast an alluring glance his way, silently urging him to come nearer. The young man believes that she is powerless to turn him down and expects her to go along with whatever he suggests. She abruptly challenged his arrogance, catching him off guard with her unexpected confidence. The villain seized him suddenly, clutching him with force before hurling both of them into the tub together. As he plunged into the water, it struck him that she was the story's main antagonist, notorious for breaking every rule. Beneath the surface of the water, the pair confronted one another, and he understood that the battle was about to start. He is taken aback by how gentle her body feels, and realizes that this experience will be new for him. The white-haired girl pressed her lips to his, only to pull away in surprise as she sensed the overwhelming strength of his yin energy. She sensed his energy flowing into her, filling her with a delightful warmth. As a soft pink glow enveloped her, she experienced a sudden surge in power, and at the same moment the man's hair shifted to a different color. The system indicated that the mission had been finished, yet her level of affection rose by just a single point. Now sporting pink hair, the villainess believed it was necessary to inform the queen of her transformation. At the same time, a servant with green hair watched nervously from afar, her face pale with fear as she observed the events unfolding. As night fell, the focus moved to the grandeur of the emperor's palace. The servant informed the woman that the sixth prince possessed a body filled with pure yin energy. The person paying close attention to the report was, who held the title of queen within the dynasty. The queen was surprised by the unexpected actions of someone she had considered insignificant, realizing that the Zai clan had ultimately come out ahead. She concludes that, while he poses no immediate danger, eliminating him permanently is the safest option. The following day, the queen instructs her attendants to ensure that word of the sixth prince reaches every corner of the court. The servant dropped to their knees, silently pledging unquestioning obedience to the commands of Her Majesty. As dawn broke, sunlight bathed a magnificent palace, introducing a new scene filled with morning brilliance. The young man opened his eyes to find daylight streaming into the room, suddenly aware that he had spent the night beside the notorious villain. A message reveals that, in the original version of the tale, the protagonist suffered injuries to their legs. A sense of relief washed over him as he realized his legs were uninjured, and it became clear that he had just avoided a serious threat. He resolved that, above all else, winning Ling's trust and affection would be his main focus from now on. While he pondered, the pink-haired girl lay quietly asleep next to him. As he strolled along the street, he grumbled about how slowly her affinity was increasing. The system revealed that her feelings toward him remained quite poor, with her affinity score still deep in the negative range. Over the last several days, he feels he has gained a deeper insight into how the system works and the items it offers. As he made his way forward, the system's bird hovered at his side, displaying the information screen. He noticed that several items remained inaccessible, leading him to conclude that his unfinished tasks were the reason for the restrictions. The girl refers to him as her husband, feeling curious about his mysterious nature since she cannot detect any power within him. He answers with certainty, his mind noting the remarkable impact she has. Without warning, a different pair steps into view, standing directly in front of them and preventing them from moving forward. The man, known as the second Prince Mu, expresses his regret for missing the wedding ceremony. The protagonist assured him that it wasn't anything important, and told him there was no need to be concerned. Reflects on the unpleasant gossip he has come across concerning his wife. The girl's anger flared as she stared at the comet, silently vowing to bring an end to the man's existence. The girl's frustration grew, her anger intensifying from 30 to 35% in response to the provocation. The young man observed that the darkness within her had grown stronger, making him worry that she could soon turn against the prince. In an attempt to ease the tension, he gently grasps his brother's wrist and offers an apology for his earlier misstep. He proceeds to caution the other man, making it clear that his wife is not present to be subjected to his judgment. With his back turned, the young man reached out to take her hand, letting her know through his actions that there were significant tasks ahead for them. The second prince feels puzzled, noticing that his brother's behavior has changed so much that he hardly recognizes him. Brimming with confidence, he wonders if his actions have left a mark on her, and then decides to look at the affinity score. The system's display reveals that the affinity remains below 0, causing him to feel a wave of disappointment. He glanced over with a playful expression, secretly questioning whether taking that particular action would help win her over. As he walks with their fingers intertwined, he senses curious glances from those around him, making him feel self-conscious. In another part of the palace, a girl with striking pink hair approached the queen and offered her a carefully chosen present. The queen beckoned her to approach, expressing a desire to observe how much her abilities had advanced. The girl wanted to know whether the rumor about the sixth prince possessing a physique was actually true. The empress let out a laugh, admitting that it was true and mentioning that 4 others had already asked her the same thing. The niece reveals her intentions, expressing that her only desire is to become a concubine and that she requires his assistance to move forward. Just then, the couple reached the palace, with the man having already anticipated that something like this would happen. He recalls how, in the original story, the empress had taken away Ling's status as the official wife. To make matters worse, the queen had publicly shamed her in a particularly harsh manner, ensuring that everyone witnessed her humiliation. Now everything had changed, as he was no longer an unknown figure. He had accompanied her into the palace. Fueled by determination, he resolved to take advantage of the opportunity, hoping to win her favor and secure his own safety. He became aware of the pink-haired girl's intense stare, which gave him the unsettling impression that she was hungry to consume him. Before the assembled crowd, the queen inquired whether Ling found life in the palace uneasy. The girl with white hair felt puzzled by the question, unable to grasp the empress's intentions. The queen hurled an insult at her, declaring that she did not belong to a noble tribe and dismissing her as nothing more than a half-breed. The stinging remark fuels her frustration, while the boy grows increasingly anxious as the tension between them escalates. He stands up for his wife, assuring everyone that she is perfectly all right, and that the concerned onlooker has no reason to be worried about her. The girl found herself caught off guard by the way he behaved, and as a result, she felt a growing fondness for him, her feelings warming by 5 points. The empress seethed with anger, unable to believe that the son of a royal concubine who had fallen from grace would dare act so boldly. The queen promptly expressed her desire for them to part ways, believing that was a better match. Immediately rejects the suggestion and warns that she will take drastic action against the man if he consents to the divorce. The queen dismissed the warning and instructed the prince to end his marriage without delay. The pink-haired girl agreed to become a concubine, assuring him that he would be generously rewarded for his decision. She proposes that the 2 of them settle their differences by competing in a series of traditional feminine skills and talents. The empress believed that organizing a competition would be an effective and fair solution to the issue at hand. Wearing a cheerful expression, she feels confident that the unruly girl won't make it past the first round. She accepted the challenge, making it clear that defeat would mean losing her status as wife. The man made up his mind to use his nearly unbeatable system as a way to support his wife's victory. He moved nearer and quietly urged her to take on the challenge, assuring her that he knew a method to assist her. The girl casts a wary glance at him, her mind filled with doubts about what her husband is really planning. The days passed quickly, and soon the much-anticipated competition day was upon them. Inside the competition hall, the judge observed as both girls got ready to face the upcoming challenge. The girl with white hair eyed her husband warily, questioning him about the details of his impressive scheme. He offers her a reassuring grin, signaling that she only needs to trust his guidance and everything will work out smoothly. The judge revealed that the challenge would involve embroidery, giving everyone 2 hours to complete their work, with the final part allowing for a freestyle design. Both participants received their materials, signaling the official start of the competition. The pink-haired girl began embroidering with impressive expertise, her confidence evident in every precise movement. At the same time, his wife gazes at the cloth, silently questioning whether he hopes she will fail. Noticing what was happening, the young man retrieved a card from the system, signaling that it was time to take action. The card, decorated with flower embroidery, began to emit a soft glow, sending its energy into the project the girl was working on. As the moment slipped away, grains of sand steadily trickled through the hourglass, silently recording the flow of time. As the allotted time ran out, the judge instructed both participants to display their embroidery work. At the start, she presents the lotus embroidery created by the girl with pink hair and compliments the craftsmanship. At last, the woman shifts her attention to examine what the other contestant has created. The queen believes her niece has already secured victory, convinced the other girl, unruly and untamed, poses no real challenge. When the judge unrolled the scroll, she was utterly taken aback by its unexpected contents. She gazes in awe at the breathtaking scenery as the boy rejoices over their successful scheme. Yet, her attention is soon drawn to unfamiliar tiny animals moving through the forest, creatures unlike any she has ever encountered before. The young man, displaying an air of superiority, informed everyone that the style was known as abstract art. Convinced by the evidence, the woman acknowledges that she does not know the answer and announces that the sixth princess has won. The queen's shock quickly turned to anger as she struggled to accept the surprising news she had just received. The girl with pink hair made a determined promise to herself that she would come out on top in their next encounter, as her opponent, still puzzled, tried to figure out how victory had slipped into her hands. The queen declared the start of the competition's second round, confidently stating that the girl's streak of good fortune had finally ended. The white-haired girl, her face hidden behind a delicate veil, herself for the upcoming dance competition. She moved across the floor with remarkable elegance, making it clear to the onlooker that she possessed enough talent to claim victory by herself. He clutched the dance card tightly, his eyes gleaming with excitement as he eagerly anticipated the upcoming performance. Compared to her, the way the other girls moved resembled a traditional folk dance and didn't capture as much attention. The protagonist's confident smile revealed an unwavering certainty about who would emerge as the winner. Once the performances concluded, everyone in attendance would cast their votes to determine the outcome. When the votes were shown, the young man stared in disbelief, completely stunned by the outcome. Each judge revealed a scroll, and everyone displayed its name. The girl with white hair reacted with a mix of shock and puzzlement when she learned how the vote had turned out. The queen proudly boasted that she had handpicked every judge herself, ensuring her niece would win without question. Irritated, the young man silently vows to teach the elderly lady the true feeling of victory. He passed a mysterious ring to his wife, explaining that she would need it for the upcoming round. Slipping the ring onto her finger, she felt a jolt of surprise when she realized she couldn't determine the object's level at all. As the third and final round approached, both competitors themselves for an intense martial arts showdown. Without pausing to consider her actions, the girl with pink hair rushes straight at her adversary. With a powerful strike, the two swords collided, marking the true start of the battle. Despite her lower level, the girl with white hair successfully fended off the incoming attacks. She watches with admiration as the power of the strike hits her, quickly understanding that this battle will not be easy. The girl with pink hair herself, gripping her sword tightly as she began to spin, gathering momentum for a fierce attack. Exhausted, the girl acknowledges her rival's power in her mind, but resolves that defeat is not an option for her. The queen's niece let out a fierce shout as she unleashed a mighty technique with her sword. The ring's magical barrier surrounded the girl with white hair, blocking the assault and sending it back toward its source. The girl with pink hair stands frozen in disbelief, her mind struggling to make sense of the unexpected event. With her sword firmly in hand, the man's wife herself, carefully planning her next action in the ongoing battle. The queen and the assembled nobles stared in astonishment, their curiosity piqued as they speculated whether the object before them might be a powerful protective artifact. Pink energy began to swirl around the girl, who looked just as astonished as everyone else. With determination, she unleashes a surge of energy, directing the force straight at her opponent. The blow struck the girl directly, sending her flying backward with tremendous power. The girl with white hair senses the overwhelming energy closing in, threatening to engulf her completely. Driven by her desire for victory, she channels every ounce of her strength to command the swirling pink energy, aiming to bring the battle to a close. The queen's niece feels a chill run down her spine as an intimidating presence radiates from her adversary, filling her with fear. Without warning, the main character arrives and swiftly intervenes, preventing her from losing control of the surging energy. With a swift blow, he rendered her unconscious, her limp form resting in his embrace. Resting her hand on the back of her neck, the girl glared at him, irritation clear in her eyes over being defeated by him. Wearing a triumphant grin, he confidently declares that this outcome is exactly what the situation needs. The crowd stared in disbelief at the sixth prince's display of power, their minds swirling with suspicion that the queen might have misled them. Ultimately, he announced her victory and gently lifted her into his arms, shielding her with a protective embrace. Exhausted and feeling beaten, the queen instructs the crowd to disperse and brings the contest to a close. The queen feels astonished as she witnesses the unexpected strength displayed by the prince, who had always remained quiet and unnoticed within the palace walls. Feeling defeated, the queen's niece realizes she must seek a different approach to achieve her desires. Back in the room, the girl wanted to know what had occurred during the fight and was curious about the origin of the ring. He invents a reason, but deep down, all he truly desires is for her to remain by his side forever. Wearing a sly, alluring grin, he wrapped his arms around her and wondered aloud about the reasons behind her constant suspicion. Feeling a flush of embarrassment, she urged him not to be so arrogant and put some distance between them. Her affinity for him increased slightly, prompting the young man to express his excitement over their improving relationship. A system interface appeared, indicating that his cultivation had advanced to the first realm. He comes to understand that increasing her affection not only strengthens their bond, but also enhances his own cultivation, leading him to make it his new priority. The girl mentioned her plans to take a bath, and the guy responded with a brief nod of agreement. He found himself alone and quietly questioned the system, seeking to uncover the real story behind the enigmatic ring. The small bird reveals that the ring is a mystical artifact once owned by a powerful demon from long ago. As she soaked in the bath, the girl sensed an unusual presence invading her thoughts, all because of the ring. Within the depths of her mind, she encounters an enormous fox, its presence radiating an aura she recognizes. She wonders aloud why an upperclassman from the family has appeared within her mind's inner world. The fox revealed to the young woman that it was confined within the ring and expressed a desire to strike a bargain with her. About 30 minutes later, the girl stepped out of the bathroom, finding the boy already waiting for her inside the room. He began to inquire about the ring, but she interrupted him before he could say anything more. She tells him that she ended up as the ring's owner by accident and wants to know if he cares about it. Frightened, he convinces himself that it's not important and chooses to concentrate on surviving for the time being. Wearing a captivating smile, she gestures for him to enter the dream world they both imagine together. Despite feeling a bit embarrassed, the man agrees to join his wife in her dream. She recalled the agreement she had struck with the demon fox in order to acquire its cultivation method. She cast him a daring glance, cautioning him to brace himself and resist giving up without a fight. That evening he confronted her, determined to prove his full strength. As the stars glittered above, the night slipped away, and before long a new day began. Feeling utterly worn out, he believed his energy had been nearly completely depleted. He became aware of an unusual force nearby, and decided to activate a causality card to look into what was happening. Dark smoke billowed out, making him suspect that the queen was once more plotting something. He realizes that the individual before him is Yao, a servant who serves the queen and possesses mysterious powers. A woman shrouded in mystery materialized inside the room, her hand cradling a glowing orb of blue energy. A hidden task emerged, challenging Ye to increase her affinity level to 50. He grumbled about how challenging the mission was, yet he couldn't resist the tempting rewards it promised. With a resolute spirit, he makes up his mind to confront the new challenge and test his fortunes with the upcoming mission. He bursts into the room by forcefully kicking the door open, catching the woman inside off guard as she tries to stay hidden. Bright sunlight poured into the room as the door swung wide, exposing the queen's servant standing just beyond the threshold. The woman jumped in surprise when someone entered unexpectedly and let out a scream, demanding to know the identity of the intruder. He gazed at her with a hint of allure, questioning her presence in his room at such an early hour. The woman's irritation was obvious as she shot him a scornful glare, her expression warning that she wouldn't be an easy person to handle. He recalls advice from books about impressing women, which boosts his confidence. He wondered aloud why a servant from the queen was visiting his home at such an early hour. Resting his hand gently on her shoulder, he invents a tale, claiming that circumstances beyond his control led him to marry Ling. He proceeds to praise the woman, noting that she appears far more sensible compared to his own wife. The servant attempted to distance herself from him, yet he persisted in showering her with praise and went so far as to propose that she marry him. He assured her that he would lower the other woman's status and grant her the title of princess instead, leaving her astonished by his unexpected offer. The young man's charming words caused her fondness for him to climb to 80, leaving her feeling embarrassed and overwhelmed. The protagonist completed the mission successfully, and the system rewarded them generously for their achievement. Without warning, his wife walked into the room and discovered the two of them together. The servant gave a sly grin and suggested that the white-haired girl should direct her questions about the situation to the prince. Without hesitation, he changes his allegiance and begins to claim that the woman harbors ill intentions toward their group. The servant's anger boiled over as she discovered that the man had thoroughly deceived her. Consumed by intense hatred, she gathers every ounce of her mystical energy, readying herself to strike at the couple. The man ducked behind his wife, seeking her protection while his own strength slowly returned. The girl unsheathes her sword, and he relaxes, confident in her superior strength and ability to protect him. As the battle commenced, his wife skillfully thwarted the servant's assault with ease. The woman lets out a cry of agony, struck directly by the forceful counterattack. The victor warned that she would absorb the servant's energy to enhance her own cultivation abilities. The man blocks her path, warning that causing harm to one of the queen's attendants would lead to serious consequences. The woman collapsed on the ground, completely overwhelmed as the couple merely watched her in silence without offering any help. Despite the odds, she rises to her feet, gripping a weapon tightly, determined to demonstrate the full extent of her hidden powers. The young man stared in disbelief as the servant conjured a sinister spirit, preparing it for battle. The ghost that appeared possessed sharp fox ears and eyes that gleamed with a menacing red light. His wife's eyes widened in astonishment when she realized that the spirit possessed an exceptionally advanced level of cultivation. The servant commanded the ghost to eliminate the white-haired girl, showing no compassion. Desperation filled the man's voice as he urgently warned his wife about the incoming, forceful assault. The girl is taken off guard and finds herself unable to defend against the strike. The servant proudly celebrated her triumph, confidently declaring her intention to transform her defeated rival into a servant as well. Observing what was happening, the man chose to play a card that would make his wife stronger. The cultivation card emitted a bright light, granting the white-haired girl a brief surge of power. A soft pink glow enveloped her, leaving everyone around her stunned by the unexpected surge in her strength. Spiritual energy gathered within her, gradually drawing her into the state known as the Golden Core Realm. The spirit lunged forward, but the girl, now empowered and determined, prepared herself to defend and retaliate. A self-assured grin spread across her face as she herself to demonstrate her newfound abilities during the fight. She overpowers both of her challengers, leaving them unable to compete with her strength. The victor seizes the servant's hair and effortlessly hoists her into the air. A strange glow radiated from the ring worn by the girl with white hair, casting an air of mystery around her. A sly grin spreads across her face as she channels the ring's magic, drawing the servant's energy into herself. The young man found himself amazed by the ghost clan's rare power to draw in and harness energy. She threatened the servant, making it clear that revealing anything to the queen would cost the servant her life. Feeling utterly defeated and stripped of her power, the woman gave her word that she would keep the events that transpired a secret from everyone. She fixed the servant with an icy stare, silently commanding the defeated figure to leave her room at once. Terrified, the woman dashes out of the room, desperate to escape and protect herself. The fox spirit remained present, while the young man contemplated his next move regarding her. He activates a card, and quickly understands that her bond with the servant has been permanently broken. The ghost transformed, taking on a solid form with striking hair and pointed fox ears. She stared at her transformed form, a wave of memories from her past life flooding her mind. The young man revealed that he had employed a hidden method to create a body for her, and he decided to call her. Feeling deeply thankful, the fox pledges lifelong devotion to her new master, vowing to serve him faithfully forever. She marvels at the extent of his abilities, feeling so inspired that she resolves to dedicate herself to supporting him wholeheartedly. He presented his wife to her, explaining that his wife was able to assist with her cultivation training. The girl with white hair has a feeling that he relied on a mystical artifact to make everything happen. Her feelings toward him grew warmer, and, feeling a bit shy, she expressed her gratitude for his assistance during the fight. He felt pleased about the boost in affinity, and silently expressed his gratitude to the queen for her subtle assistance. In another location, the head of the sect known as Master Mo appeared. He called upon his student, Ling Li, assigning him the role of guiding the princes within the palace walls. The disciple agreed to take on the task, marking the long-awaited debut of the novel's main character. After the recent battle, the young man's days in the palace grew noticeably more peaceful and serene. Remained the sole person persisting in attempts to gain his affection, refusing to be discouraged. The system presented a list of new missions, making it clear to him that the main goal was to strengthen Ling's feelings toward him. Without warning, a guard dashed in, urgently announcing that the sixth prince was in need of assistance. The guard recounts how the princess struck the prime minister's daughter using gold coins. The man stared in disbelief, struggling to understand what could have driven his wife to treat the girl that way. The man admits his lack of knowledge about the specifics, but reveals that she is currently being kept at the garden. He instructs his servants to ready the horses, realizing that the secret mission finally fits together in his mind. At the same time, out in the garden, several individuals heatedly discussed the recent conflict that had taken place. The prime minister's daughter wept, pleading with the second prince to help her seek justice. The man proposes that she make amends by offering an apology, hoping this approach will settle the matter without conflict. The girl shakes her head, denying the request, and accuses the other person of having taken her spiritual pearl as well. A young girl steps forward to protect the princess, explaining that she merely discovered the pearl lying in the grass. The young woman stood her ground, firmly supporting her friend while insisting that the other person was fabricating the entire story. The girl with white hair clarified that she had slapped the other girl as a lesson in proper behavior. The second prince's anger flared at her boldness, and he addressed her directly, using her name. He belittled her, dismissing her as insignificant and merely the spouse of an unremarkable cultivator. A sly grin spread across the face of the girl with white hair as she called forth a spirit to join her in the fight. Just as the confrontation is about to start, the sixth prince steps into the garden, determined to put an end to the conflict. A young girl dashed over to him, wrapping her arms around him in a warm embrace. She greeted him as her cousin and pleaded for his assistance. He recalls that the girl is both his niece and a significant supporter of the story's main adversary. The darkness within his wife grew significantly, leaving him feeling hopeless about what was happening. He realizes that, before the situation escalates, he must focus on soothing his wife's nerves. With a soft expression, he attempts to catch his wife's attention, hoping she will notice him. With a soothing voice, he motions for her to approach, using a gesture that makes his invitation clear and welcoming. She was taken aback by his sudden appearance and wondered how he had arrived so fast to assist with the chaos. He embraced his wife, expressing that he would never allow anyone else to treat her poorly. The couple's tender moment was suddenly disrupted by the arrival of the second prince. He gazes at his younger brother with disdain, expressing disapproval over the boy's poor manners. The man fired back with his own insult, which infuriated the prince, especially when he was compared to someone else. A different man approached and offered the sixth prince a warm, cheerful greeting. The main character immediately identifies the pair as Yang and notorious antagonists featured in the novel. He recalls how, in the original story, they often treated him poorly during his childhood. The emperor ignored him because he was insignificant, allowing others to pick on him without interference. The girl with dark hair regarded him with disdain, believing he was too feeble and destined to fail within the palace walls. He comes to understand that without the intervention of the family, his fate would have been sealed in disaster. He looked around with a sense of pride, demanding to know who had the audacity to wrong his beloved wife. The prime minister's daughter approached her father, demanding to know the target of his harsh words. Wearing a mocking smile, he announces that he is insulting whoever responded to his question. The girl boasts about her grandfather's influence, insisting that he should step in and fix the problem. He claimed she was making baseless statements and insisted that his wife had no interest in the pearl. At the sound of his fingers snapping, his loyal fox servant appeared by his side, accompanied by an enormous spirit. The fox, brimming with energy, herself to strike as soon as her master gave the order. The prime minister's daughter trembles with fear, her voice rising in a furious shout as she calls out the man's name. The girl attempts to hold her position, yet a hand suddenly emerges from a portal and strikes at her. She lets out a cry of agony when a powerful slap lands on her cheek, sending her sprawling onto the floor. As her eyes rolled back, the girl lost consciousness, and for a brief instant it seemed as though her spirit drifted away from her body. The villain unsheathed his sword and rushed at the sixth prince with wild anger. His blade, channeling his skill into a fierce strike meant to defeat his opponent once and for all. With every ounce of strength he possessed, he began his assault and shouted at the prince, commanding him to surrender. The fox servant suddenly materialized before him, effortlessly halting the sword's advance between two slender fingers. She fixed the man with a scornful stare, her presence so commanding that fear swept over him. The fox employed her seductive powers to cloud his mind, urging him to surrender and acknowledge his loss. The man's head spun with confusion, leaving him to question what sort of deception she might be employing against him. He attempts to hold his ground, yet the fox's power overwhelms him. The second prince observed the fox's abilities with curiosity, silently questioning whether he had the strength to overcome her. The servant, a swirling orb of purple energy, intending to bring the battle to a close. The second prince stepped forward, cutting into the conversation to point out that the unconscious girl required immediate medical attention. Wearing a forced grin, he implied to his brother that they should allow the other person to accompany his sister instead. The main character nodded in agreement to the suggestion, allowing the pair to depart without any trouble. He, exuding confidence, proposes that his brother join the group to help keep everyone safe. The prince, irritated by the man's boldness, shoots him a cold, hateful glare. He reached out to assist his friend to his feet, concern etched on his face as he checked whether his friend was all right following the attack. The man suddenly becomes aware that his ability to cultivate has been blocked, leaving him stunned by this unexpected revelation. He noticed an unusual sound and felt uncertain about the situation unfolding nearby. From afar, an enraged man called out the sixth prince's name, his eyes blazing with fury. A sudden shout catches everyone off guard, causing them to turn toward the source of the sound with bewildered expressions. The focus moves to the royal palace, where the chaos is about to erupt once again. The young man strode through the palace halls, his irritation still simmering from the recent events. The queen commanded that he remain confined to his quarters, insisting that he spend time contemplating his behavior. The young man's eyes burned with fury as he stared at the queen's command, his expression twisted in scorn. He pays no attention to the command and continues on his way, behaving as though nothing out of the ordinary has occurred. Without warning, he noticed someone he recognized and began to question the situation unfolding before him. He realizes that the man standing before him is actually the main character from the novel, and he wonders why this person is here. The young man believes that by staying near him, he could possibly prevent the sorrowful fate. According to the system, there were no available items that could be applied to the original protagonist. He walked over to discover why the renowned Ling Li was present in the palace. The man shares that the king commanded him to become the tutor for the second prince. The young man offers him a place to stay at his home, suggesting he take a few days to recover from his travels. The tutor respectfully refuses the offer, explaining that accepting would not be appropriate. The young man recalled how, in the story, he had never been popular, so he understood why he was being turned down. The man clarified that he had already brought the prince along for training and emphasized the importance of not being late. When the young man learns about the underworld palace, disbelief and astonishment sweep over him. He recalled a crucial part of the story and questioned how it had slipped his mind. The demon fox demonstrated a unique skill to the girl with white hair. She felt remorse for having been tricked by a man, which led her into a difficult predicament. The man's wife comes to understand that the secret behind the method lies in practicing it together with someone else. The fox's eyes gleamed with excitement as she got ready to start the unique training session. The white-haired girl lets out a terrified cry when she senses the fox's energy surging into her body. The demon notices that the power gathered so far falls short of what it needs to carry out its intentions. She assures the young woman that, using her special method, she will reveal what genuine enjoyment in life feels like. The girl grew flustered as she pleaded with the fox to avoid touching specific spots, her cheeks turning red with embarrassment. A sinister grin spread across the demon's face as it announced its intention to take over her body. At the same time, the man's thoughts drifted to what he and his wife might share for dinner that evening. He entered the room brimming with excitement, eagerly searching for his beloved wife. He notices his wife hurrying in his direction, surrounded by an unusual pink glow. She gazed at him with alluring eyes, greeting him as her husband and remarking that he had at last returned. The young man suddenly senses that something is terribly amiss, and a wave of panic sweeps over him as he struggles to grasp the gravity of the situation. The girl seized him and began draining all of his yin energy in a single, powerful surge. He senses his strength slipping away and is gripped by fear at the overwhelming force she possesses. At the same time, a surge of powerful energy flows into the woman's body, making her acutely aware of its overwhelming presence. The man wonders aloud whether the woman before him is actually the demon fox from the ring, doubting that she is truly his wife. Wearing a teasing smile, she urged him to let go of his doubts and simply savor the present. The girl with white hair unsheathes her sword, steadying herself as she gets ready to act. He observes his wife as she practices, coming to the conclusion that she must banish the demon. The man expressed admiration for the fox servant's diligent training, prompting her to respond with a gracious acknowledgement of her master's guidance. He recalled the extent of Ling Li's abilities and grasped the distinctions among the various levels of cultivation. The initial main character had almost reached the top level of the nascent soul stage. In 5 days, the gates of the underworld palace would open, so he began readying himself for the journey ahead. The area served as the forbidden territory of the demon tribe, protected under the watchful eyes of a powerful sect. The area is home to fearsome monsters, and within its depths lies a valuable hidden treasure. He recalled that, within the story, Ling had discovered a unique artifact hidden inside the palace. He flashed a self-assured grin as he asked his wife to start packing their bags, determined to set events in motion that would alter the course of history. Inside the palace, the queen quietly enjoys her tea, her thoughts lingering on everything that has happened lately. She believes the relationship between the two will be short-lived, and she feels as though she has lost a valuable asset. The Empress had already arranged for a tutor to assist the second prince as he worked on his plans. She is convinced that visiting the underworld palace will guarantee her son's claim to the throne. 5 days passed before the palace gates were once again unlocked, allowing guests to enter. 2 members of the group expressed their dissatisfaction about Ghost Clan descendants being nearby. As the girl's aura grew darker, the boy found himself becoming irritated by the ominous attitude of those around him. He stood up for his friends, cautioning the elders to refrain from speaking negatively about them. The elders regarded him with disdain because he was born to a concubine and lacked any cultivation abilities. Masking their true feelings with insincerity, they offered empty apologies and cautioned him about the perils that awaited within the palace. He brushes off their worries, confidently relying on his wife for protection during the trip. Within the palace walls, he notices with astonishment how many guests have gathered ahead of him. The area teemed with guards and cultivators who had traveled from distant lands, each one drawn by the promise of gaining greater strength. He grumbled internally about how expensive the bottled water was, suspecting that the sellers were taking advantage of customers. Noticing the faint spiritual energy, he realizes that they must venture further in. He gently takes his wife's hand and leads her further into the heart of the palace. The girl with white hair hurried after him, letting him guide her quickly forward. The group discovers the second prince sitting quietly among his companions, deeply focused as he draws in the surrounding energy through meditation. The prince's tutor bids farewell, mentioning his intention to venture into the farthest corners of the palace. The prince granted him leave to depart, cautioning him about the perils that awaited in that place. The tutor, filled with gratitude, offers a respectful bow before leaving with his wife to begin their exploration. Deep within the palace, the group of young men themselves for what lay ahead. Feeling uninterested, he notices that there isn't much to keep him occupied and that everything around him seems lifeless and unexciting. Memories of his past life linger in his mind, and he feels a longing for the games that once brought him joy. He chooses to stroll around the area, giving his wife some quiet time to focus on her practice. A fresh assignment emerged, tasking him with facing the notorious villainous siblings, and he recognized it as a promising chance. The siblings made their way through the winding caves, while the girl wondered aloud whether they should venture further into the depths. The brothers smiled with confidence, believing it was only right for them to keep moving forward on their journey. The girl wondered aloud about the decision to avoid the second prince, thinking it would have been safer to stay with him. He states that the prince lacks courage and refuses to explore the deeper areas. The pair agreed to move forward and began scaling a steep rock wall to access the following area. Taken by surprise at the unexpected arrival, the siblings let out frightened screams and demand to know the identity of the intruder. A young man showed up with a friendly grin, clearly surprised to see them again so quickly. The brother taunted him, pointing out that this place posed a threat to anyone who lacked the ability to cultivate. The young man, irritated, wondered aloud about the origin of the rumor claiming he was unable to cultivate. He is aware of a secure route, yet realizes the siblings have chosen the risky way instead. Without warning, a thunderous roar reverberated throughout the cave, jolting the group of villains and filling them with alarm. A sudden noise fills the air, sending a wave of fear through the girl as she anxiously tries to figure out what could be causing the commotion. A massive creature with a demonic presence emerged, its body surrounded by an ominous, glowing purple aura that struck fear into anyone who saw it. The brother observed the monster's impressive strength, feeling a wave of surprise at how powerful it truly was. As he attempted to flee, the protagonist mocked his inability to face the demon. The siblings, believing the guy to be overly confident, dared him to prove his toughness by battling the monster. Wearing a confident smile, he asserted that his abilities at the Golden Core stage were sufficient. He gathered an immense surge of gold and energy around himself, readying for an impending assault. A surge of golden flames swept over the creature, overwhelming it and bringing about its defeat in a single mighty strike. He faced the stunned siblings, his demeanor radiating confidence and self-assurance. The villainous duo stood in stunned silence, unable to comprehend the shocking scene before them. He believes his true purpose is to disgrace them, rather than simply earning the prize. The brother stared in disbelief, as he finally understood that the other guy had been genuine the entire time. He acknowledges that, given his own build, it's remarkable he is able to practice cultivation. The protagonist cautioned the others, explaining that the noise from their battle had drawn the attention of even more monsters lurking close by. The siblings stared in disbelief, unable to comprehend the source of the young man's sudden strength. He flashed a self-assured grin, let out a light whistle, and got ready to move forward with his plan. The brother recalls his sister's past engagement to the man, and begins plotting how he will take his revenge. The girl recalls that he once had feelings for her, but now that he is married, she sees an opportunity to take advantage of him. Wearing a look of determination, she assures him through her actions that the problem is hers to handle and confidently moves toward him. The young woman referred to the man as the sixth prince and herself to sway him with her charisma. The young woman admired his ability to conceal his skills and was impressed by the extraordinary progress he had achieved in his cultivation. The man expresses that he liked her more when she was wild and unruly, just as she used to be. She brings up their engagement, hoping it will persuade him to assist her as they try to overcome their difficult circumstances. He mocked her, reminding her that someone had recently called him a worthless prince. The young man, having earned the pills as a prize, himself to make use of them. He handed over a bag filled with pills, suggesting they could serve as training partners. The women doubted the effectiveness of the training method that he had suggested. His wife chooses to believe in him again and gets ready for the upcoming battle. The fox servant launched a swift and forceful strike against one of the monsters, catching it off guard. The remaining two characters step forward to confront the monsters, showing courage as they engage in the fight. The cavern bursts alive with flashes and clamor, echoing with the relentless struggle of their ongoing fight. Following a long day spent arguing, his wife inquired about whether any medication remained. He paid no attention to her and instructed her to take down the final creature that had emerged inside the cave. The girl expresses regret for her harsh words about him and hopes he will forgive her without resentment. He claims he has moved on from her and insists that their lives no longer intersect. Annoyance flashed across the girl's face as she warned him sternly, making it clear that her patience was wearing thin and he shouldn't push her any further. Inside the cave, additional monsters emerged, readying themselves to launch an assault against the gathered villains. The siblings tremble with fear as additional monsters appear, their sense of danger growing and their concern for survival intensifying. The man let out a laugh and cautioned the group, explaining that the majority of the monsters in that place were starving females. He jumped back, abandoning the siblings as they stood together, left to confront the wrath of the monsters on their own. The villain grew fearful upon discovering the strange cravings of the creature that lived in the cave. The man bids them farewell, clearly enjoying the sight of their helpless struggle as they find themselves trapped with no escape. The siblings desperately cried out, their voices echoing through the air while ravenous creatures lunged at them. The system reported that the mission had been completed successfully, and immediately after, a new rescue assignment was presented. He questions to himself what drives the pink-haired girl to put herself in such danger. He questions whether every woman from that time period is fixated on rivalry. Armed with the new cultivation card, he began to imagine himself possessing the strong and healthy body he had always wished for. After completing their training, his friends stood prepared to move on to the following phase. Elsewhere within the cavern, the girl with pink hair battles against a group of monsters. Armed with a glowing blue energy sword, she courageously stands her ground against the approaching creatures. The man's wife noticed the girl and questioned to herself why the girl had shown up in that place. She swung her sword with incredible force, cutting down multiple monsters in a single, decisive attack. While concealed, the young man observed the ongoing battle and realized that the girl participating was the same one he had seen at the last tournament. Exhausted, the girl questions in her mind the reason behind the large number of monsters gathered in that location. From the darkness, the fallen creatures' silhouettes began to form once more, readying themselves for another assault. Fierce creatures rushed at the girl, leaving her stunned by the chaos unfolding before her. She starts to fearfully imagine the possibility that demonic beasts might be brought back to life. The man's wife comes to understand that the entire issue stems from a cursed scepter. She cautions them that unless the object is destroyed, the monsters will consume them. The girl with pink hair was struck by a monster, sending her flying across the area. Observing what was happening, the young man quickly understood that he had to move swiftly if he wanted to rescue her. He catches her as she falls and cradles her securely, shielding her from harm. She expressed her astonishment upon recognizing him as the sixth prince and offered her gratitude for his assistance during the conflict. His wife arrived on the scene, curious about why he was there with another woman. She fixes her husband with a frosty gaze, silently expecting him to offer a reasonable explanation. The demon fox acknowledged her improvement and encouraged her to take hold of an artifact. The girl with white hair wonders what awaits her on the second floor, as her thoughts drift to the possibilities above. The man picked up his phone to call his wife, doing his best to clearly describe what was happening. She remarks that the current location doesn't hold enough energy, and insists they must venture further underground. He seizes the moment, thinking to himself that he had been trying to figure out how to describe the rescue. He smiled, confidently claiming that he was familiar with a quicker way to reach the palace's second floor. The group trailed after the man as he led them onward to the next level, with the two women keeping a close pace behind him. His wife is curious about how he seems so familiar with the layout of that location. The next day, his wife questioned the servant about whether any pills remained, but the fox girl quickly and loudly that there were any left. Stretched out on a rock, the man assured his wife that she would manage just fine without their presence, which caused the white-haired girl nearby to bristle with irritation at his remark. In an effort to save his wife, he swung his sword at the evil scepter, shattering it in half with a single powerful blow. A brilliant blue glow burst from the shattered object, enveloping everyone nearby. The group sensed an overwhelming surge of energy radiating from the light. Fueled by a surge of energy, the girl with pink hair swiftly advanced from the fifth to the third level of cultivation. Astonishment washed over her face as she tried to comprehend the unexpected transformation. The fox servant's strength grew as she advanced to the fourth level of the golden core. Filled with joy, she celebrated by striking a triumphant pose. His wife gained the same power, advancing to the initial stage of the golden core. As a result, her strength became significantly greater than it had been. The young woman stared in disbelief at the outcome, questioning whether she had truly advanced 3 levels in a single moment, her newfound power almost unimaginable to her. The protagonist smiled, reflecting on how much progress had been made, feeling satisfied and pleased with the outcome of his carefully crafted plan. The pink-haired girl, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, wondered aloud if she might stay with the group. Despite her shy demeanor, she appeared to be genuinely enjoying the presence of the sixth prince. The man gestured toward his wife, suggesting with a sly smile that she should consult the one truly in charge, fully expecting that his wife would dismiss the visitor. The man found himself taken aback when his white-haired wife calmly assured him that she didn't care, surprising him with her unexpected willingness to agree. The young woman dismisses his concerns, insisting to herself that accepting more assistance will not slow them down. Without acknowledging his viewpoint, she fixes him with a frosty stare before turning away and continuing forward. Believing the group must be exhausted from battling so many monsters, the protagonist chooses to activate a system item to offer them some relief. Using the special item, he built a house and informed the group that they would spend the night there. He then declared that they would move on to the second floor the following day. His wife stared at the house in disbelief, wondering aloud about the origin of such a remarkable treasure, her thoughts tinged with suspicion that her husband was keeping many secrets from her. He quickly invents a story, claiming the item was a present from his father, while the protagonist does their best to remain calm and not attract any further attention. The girl with pink hair held onto the prince, her cheeks flushed with embarrassment, as she pleaded for him to let her stay by his side and quietly expressed her desire to become his consort. He shouted for assistance, accusing the girl of bothering him, while the system declared the mission accomplished and presented him with a reward card. Within the confines of the room, the protagonist activated the card, prompting golden flames to encircle him. At that moment, the system announced that he had gained the ability to cultivate just like everyone else. A broad grin spread across his face as he rejoiced in the accomplishment of completing the mission at last, feeling the surge of newfound strength that now set him above his former self. He rejoices in the progress of his skills, amazed by the newfound strength and exhilaration that comes with mastering his own body. A blue glow surrounded him as he discovered he could now conceal his cultivation, making him confident that no one would be able to challenge his strength. Without warning, the bedroom door creaked open, and a figure slipped inside, moving so quietly that no sound gave away their presence. His wife appeared before him, prompting him to wonder why she was not getting the rest she needed, since the hour was late and she ought to have been asleep in bed. The girl believed she had become much stronger than before and felt confident that, with her beloved husband's support, she could grow even more powerful. She gazed at them with captivating eyes and cheeks flushed with color, suggesting it was time to begin, while the young man found himself puzzled by what was happening. Without hesitating, she shoved him onto the bed. Surprised and unprepared, he called out, asking her to slow down because he wasn't ready yet. Both of them looked at one another in shock, while the girl with white hair appeared resolute, clearly set on carrying out her intentions. The fox servant and the girl with pink hair showed up at the doorway, wondering aloud if they could also climb into the bed with the others. He stared in disbelief, questioning their actions and considering whether they had taken an excessive number of energy pills. Yet, as he reflected, he started to think that perhaps the situation was not as terrible as he first believed. The three girls fixed their playful gazes on the boy, leaving him uncertain and flustered under their collective attention. A cold sweat covered his skin, yet a smile lingered on his face as he noticed everyone had gathered in his room, making him understand that the night ahead would stretch on for hours. The pink-haired girl brushed off any concerns, insisting with a gentle smile that being with the sixth prince that night was something she truly wanted. With people closing in on all sides, he wonders aloud about their rush, noticing that one of the men looks increasingly anxious about what's happening. The following morning, he lay sprawled on the bed, utterly drained, while the girls appeared energetic and unaffected. Confused, he questioned to himself what could have caused his overwhelming fatigue. His wife informs him that they must head upstairs, explaining that she has to retrieve a hidden magical weapon from the second floor. The young man's eyes widened in astonishment as he wondered aloud why he hadn't heard of this weapon before, suspecting it might be a rare artifact similar to the ring she possessed. He stood up with a cheerful smile, offering to guide them to the second floor, and his response appeared to please his wife. The group comes to a stop before a glowing blue portal, as the young man points out that this is where they will find the entrance to the second floor. As he stepped through the portal, the young man's eyes widened in astonishment at the unfamiliar sights before him, silently questioning the nature of this strange new world. The group reaches a towering cliff, where they take in the view of the second floor, its landscape hidden beneath an eerie, swirling mist. The group proceeded down a slender trail as the surrounding mist grew denser and more unusual. His wife looked at the fog with concern, wondering aloud about its strangeness. He reassured her, insisting that they should not be troubled by it, since the magical weapon demanded their attention above all else. Without warning, a girl dressed as a bunny materialized before the protagonist, leaving him so startled and confused that he convinced himself she must be a figment of his imagination. A digital interface materialized before him, alerting him that he was experiencing a hallucination and urging him to proceed with caution. His nose began to bleed, but he urged his wife to ignore him and continue on her way as he took pleasure in the scenery. The trio of girls stared at him, their faces showing both frustration and bewilderment as they tried to make sense of his odd, oblivious actions. The group eventually reaches a spacious platform, where they notice several individuals standing in the center, clearly expecting their arrival. The woman with white hair reveals that the people confronting her once followed her, and now she must overcome them in order to obtain the weapon she seeks. The followers issued a stern warning, making it clear that if the intruders did not depart immediately, they would show no hesitation in launching a relentless attack. At the same time, elsewhere within the cave, the first main character continued searching the surroundings alongside his companions. A man with a self-assured grin approached the main character, addressing him warmly as if they were siblings. The mentor returned the greeting and explained that he had been held up on his way over. The man reveals his intention to reach the third floor, where an ancestral inheritance lies concealed, awaiting his arrival. He believed the journey was too risky to face by himself, so he gathered his brothers to help make sure everything would proceed safely along the way. His friends claim their main concern is his health, insisting they have no interest in the fortune he stands to inherit. The woman who is with the main character appears drawn to him, her eyes sparkling with interest as she lets out a soft, flirtatious laugh. On the ground level, the villainous siblings frantically raced through the cave as the relentless monsters continued their pursuit. Wounded and out of breath, he pleaded for his sister to slow down, unable to match her speed any longer. The girl encouraged her brother to persevere, reminding him that they were close to reaching their destination. Without warning, the group encountered the second prince accompanied by his guards, who demanded to know the identity of those before them. The second prince fixed his gaze on them, his face set with determination, and lifted his hand to signal that they should not approach any further. The girl smiles warmly at him, her expression showing clear relief now that she has finally found someone willing to assist her. Without warning, she lost her footing and pitched forward, her injuries making it impossible to steady herself. The young woman lost her balance and tumbled forward, landing in the arms of the second prince. He managed to catch her just in time, his face filled with astonishment at the sudden turn of events. The prince, appearing perplexed by the circumstances, inquired whether the two before him were indeed the siblings and... Her brother collapses onto the floor, cries of agony escaping him, as though he can no longer endure the suffering. The prince wanted to know how they had gotten hurt and what had happened. He pointed out that the area was dangerous. While sprawled across the ground, the young man blamed them for inciting the wrath of the 6 princes within the cave. He recalls the protagonist's cheerful smile and feels certain that his own promising future has ended because of that person. Fueled by anger, he resolved to shift all responsibility onto the protagonist, seeking retribution for the embarrassment he had suffered. He then deceives the second prince by claiming that they had simply been quietly training inside the cave. The villain persisted with his deception, claiming that the 6th prince had deliberately unleashed the monsters upon them. The girl fabricates a story, claiming that her brother can no longer move his lower body as he once could, and pleads for assistance. Overwhelmed with disbelief, the young man discovers he can no longer move his legs, and a deep sense of hopelessness washes over him. The second prince's anger flared as confusion swept over him, leaving him questioning the way the 6th prince had arrived at that place. He reassured everyone that they had nothing to fear, promising to handle the situation himself. Then, he instructed someone nearby to fetch a doctor to help the siblings. A fierce blue aura surrounded him as he silently promised to seek vengeance, determined to inform the emperor about his brother's actions the moment they escaped. The focus shifts to the main group of girls, each showing determination as they prepare themselves for the upcoming part of their adventure. The battle with the followers erupted, catching the pink-haired girl unprepared. She let out a cry of pain as an unexpected blow struck her. The young woman dangled upside down, bound tightly, her desperation growing as she realized the hopelessness of her predicament. The young man comes to the conclusion that, given their present abilities, they stand little chance against their adversaries, who skillfully ensnare them in midair without much effort. Without warning, a soft pink glow surrounded his wife as she lifted off the ground, and at last, the enchanted weapon she had longed for appeared in her hands. The weapon took the form of a golden tiara, enhancing the wearer's speed and ability to purify during battles. The fox spirit claims that she is capable of harnessing the power, yet she requires additional yin energy before she can proceed with her intentions. His wife's eyes gleamed with mischief as she demanded yin energy, catching him off guard with her abrupt transformation. He finds himself puzzled by the unusual energy surrounding her, and soon comes to understand that his own yin energy is exactly what she seeks. Once the young woman secured the weapon, the group pressed on, making their way across the second floor of the underground palace. The group moved cautiously through the shadowy cave, with the girls trailing behind the main character. Their faces were set in determined, focused expressions as they navigated the darkness. Without warning, the young man spotted movement nearby and quickly signaled to the group, urging them to stay vigilant in case of any impending threat. A massive cloud of sinister bats suddenly descends from the cave's ceiling, gathering together as they get ready to launch an assault on the group. The protagonist observes that the demons inhabiting the second floor possess greater strength, and views this as an opportunity to challenge his own abilities. He instructed the girls to handle the smaller bats, while he prepared to confront the most dangerous one by himself. A confident grin spread across his face as anticipation bubbled within him. At last, he was ready to put his newly gained cultivation skills to the test. A towering beast, complete with leathery bat wings and sharp horns, materializes before him, surrounded by an ominous glow of purple energy. Blue lightning crackled around him as he declared that the upcoming battle would reveal who truly held the most strength. The monster unleashed a fierce assault, and the young man quickly understood that the creature's energy was both intense and threatening. Fueled by determination, he himself to strike back, intent on unleashing his full strength against the menacing demon. He rushed ahead to launch his attack, determined to test whether he could put forth his full effort in hopes of claiming victory in this important battle. He unleashed a surge of blue energy at the monster, causing their powers to collide violently in the center of the cave. Wearing a determined look, he readies himself to evade the creature's rapid strike as it rushes up from behind. With remarkable quickness, the young man evaded the attack from the monstrous demon, slipping away without a scratch. He soared upward, leaping above the ground to dodge the strike that threatened him, momentarily escaping harm in the midst of the fight. Upon recognizing the threat before him, he concluded that relying on a more useful ability was necessary to handle the impending battle. A smile spreads across his face as memories of the strategies he once studied in a book fill his mind, giving him the confidence he needs to confront his opponent. The enraged creature let out a thunderous roar, then lunged toward the man, its body crackling with intense red energy. He fixes the monster with a determined stare, readying himself for the upcoming battle. His wife shouted in desperation, warning him about the dangerous attack that the enemy was launching toward him. The young man moved with lightning-fast reflexes, weaving through the barrage of energy blasts and slipping away without a single scratch. The beast launched another assault, unleashing a powerful blast at the spot where the hero had just been. Despite his obvious discomfort, he manages to wear a cheerful expression, appearing to find excitement in the fierce battle. As he lay sprawled on the ground, he groaned about the intense pain in his head caused by the blow he had just received. The trio of girls stared at him, their faces marked by bewilderment as they struggled to make sense of the unfolding chaos on the battlefield. He stood up, mentioning that he had nearly perfected the new technique he had recently learned to use against the monster. Employing his special skill, his image, surrounding the monster with copies of himself. This tactic bewildered the beast, allowing him to slip past its attacks without effort. The girls looked on with admiration, silently questioning how he had advanced so rapidly in his training within such a brief period. The creature's anger grew each time its attacks missed, while the protagonist skillfully avoided every blow. The creature unleashed a deafening blast, sending a surge of crimson energy hurtling toward them. His wife conjured a protective energy barrier around the group, cautioning everyone to remain still as the assault commenced. The creature lunges ahead with remarkable swiftness, readying itself to unleash another devastating strike at the group. His wife urgently alerted him that the protective barrier was on the verge of shattering, and that a grave event was imminent in the ongoing battle. Wearing a determined look, the protagonist decides that escaping is useless and realizes the moment has come to make a bold move. A blue glow surrounded him as he called forth multiple energy swords, readying himself to strike back against the monster. The energy swords struck the monster directly, delivering a powerful and destructive force upon impact. The impact from the strike triggers a massive blast, sending a thick plume of dust billowing over the battlefield. Once the debris cleared, he noticed that the monster had survived, prompting him to ready himself for what would come next. He produced a sinister golden core pill, explaining that consuming it would significantly boost his power for the upcoming battle. His wife stared at him in astonishment, questioning whether he had concealed his abilities the entire time and pondering the true nature of the man she thought she knew. The girl with pink hair marveled at his impressive abilities, questioning in her thoughts how anyone could have started the false rumor about his incompetence. He mentions that the palace won't close for a while yet, and encourages everyone to push their cultivation further so they have a chance to progress. The man passed the pill to his wife, while the girl with white hair curiously inquired about the unfamiliar item. He winked as he mentioned that the item would make a wonderful gift for his wife, causing her to blush in mild embarrassment at his playful remark. The white-haired girl's cheeks turned pink as she expressed her gratitude for the present, clearly delighted by the kindness shown to her. A fresh task surfaced within the system, requiring him to hunt down and remove 3 demonic cultivators concealed on the building's 2nd floor. He discovered that the prize was a card capable of raising his wife's affection toward him by 10 points, leaving him stunned by this unexpected reward. A smile spread across his face as he prepared for the new mission, determined not to let this important task slip by. His wife grasped the pill in both hands as a brilliant golden light started to radiate powerfully from it. Golden light from the pill surrounds her, and she settles into meditation, focusing on drawing in all the energy. She sensed a powerful warmth spreading through her body, and images of people battling in a faraway location flashed through her mind. She recalls the farmer's conviction that flames consume everything, erasing all evidence in their wake. Because of her father's actions, she escaped the same tragic fate that claimed the rest of her people that day. Fueled by unwavering resolve, she commits herself to gaining strength, driven by the desire to seek justice for her lost family and the destruction of her whole clan. The protagonist reached out to her, causing the white-haired girl to snap out of her thoughts, her face now marked by a grave look. He considered the possibility that she had recalled a painful memory, and grew concerned about how she might respond right then. In an effort to ease the tension, he fakes a cough, drawing the girl's focus as he prepares to move forward with the next part of their plan. He smiled and explained that they would be doing some training, mentioning that there were a few matters he needed to handle by himself. He requested that the fox servant care for his wife during his absence, and the girl responded with a cheerful smile, agreeing to help. His wife watches him leave, her eyes narrowed with suspicion as she questions his true motives. The system indicated that the task involved locating members of the clan who were concealed on the building's 2nd floor. He recalls that the continent is home to 5 genuine clans, each with a history that is tangled and complex. The clan had long been recognized for its remarkable power and significant impact throughout history. A massive purple creature unleashed devastating bursts of energy as it launched an assault against a nearby clan. Several years in the past, multiple clans came together, forming an alliance to shield the people from the constant danger posed by monster attacks. He recalls how, in the original tale, several members of the clan chose to walk a dark and forbidden path. Because the mission offers such an enticing reward, he chooses to take care of it before focusing on anything else. With a powerful jump, he launches himself on a quest to track down the demonic cultivators, his resolve to finish the mission unwavering. From afar on a rugged cliff, he notices a pair of individuals accompanied by an enormous blue creature that appears to be their companion. One girl cautioned her friend to stay alert, explaining that the creature possessed great strength and might pose a serious threat. The creature lashed out with a tentacle, striking so quickly that avoiding the attack was nearly impossible. The monster's tentacles wrapped tightly around the girl with blue hair, drawing a sharp cry from her as the creature took hold of her. The second young woman found herself ensnared as well, soon becoming aware that the creature was draining her strength in its relentless quest for greater power. Seething with anger, she directed harsh words at the monstrous being and struggled desperately to escape the tight grip of its tentacles. The red-haired girl found herself caught even as the tentacles coiled around her, forcing her to fight desperately in an attempt to break free. She swung her sword with determination, shattering her restraints before launching an attack on the blue slime monster, all in an effort to rescue her friend. The girl checked on her friend's well-being, while the blue-haired girl explained that she was simply feeling a bit tired after losing some of her energy. From a distance, the protagonist notices that the clock is ticking down and quickly gets ready to act. He suspects that the wicked cultivators are simply biding their time, and he resolves to uncover what is really going on. Without warning, 3 shadowy figures draped in cloaks emerged, causing the girls to cry out in fear at the unexpected and eerie arrival. Overcome with fear, they wondered aloud about the identities of the mysterious men who had suddenly arrived, and questioned the reason for their presence. The leader of the group commanded everyone to be quiet, folding his arms and gazing at the others with an air of confidence and authority. The villains unleashed a surge of green energy, trapping the girls and leaving them defenseless as the poison began to take effect, with no escape in sight. As the mysterious energy approached, the girl with blue hair cried out for her friend, who reassured her and urged her not to fear the oncoming assault. Without warning, the protagonist sprang into view, intercepting the attack with astonishing swiftness. The girl with red hair stared in disbelief at the boy who had appeared without warning, unable to comprehend how he had arrived so suddenly. He smiled and remarked that his timing was perfect, adding that it had been unwise to risk the safety of the young women. The group of villains wondered aloud about the stranger's identity, while one among them warned the others not to take him lightly, recalling how he had managed to fend off a powerful attack delivered twice in succession. He told the girls that the cultivators had planned to use them in order to drain their spiritual energy for themselves. He gave a playful wink and remarked that their scheme had fallen through, adding that he had heard they had no interest in men. He pictured himself alongside the two of them, feeling that this moment could be his perfect opportunity to achieve his desires with them. His eyes lit up with excitement as he eagerly anticipated the fun opportunity that had just come his way. He reminds himself that his priority is to complete the task assigned by the system, so he turns his attention toward confronting the villains. One of the villains becomes enraged, demanding to know what gives him the right to meddle in their wicked schemes. All 3 villains rushed forward together, releasing a surge of intense purple energy aimed straight at the young man. Wearing a confident smile, he himself to strike back, pressing his hands together as he began to unleash a special technique. He sent out a surge of blue energy, which blasted the 3 villains away, hurling them a great distance with tremendous power. The young man claims he has faced tougher opponents before and begins to gather golden energy in his palm, readying himself for another strike. The blast of golden energy struck the villains directly, causing them to cry out in agony as the force overwhelmed them. One of the villains, wounded from the fight, reached for a potion and prepared to demonstrate what real pain in battle looked like. The trio raised their glasses and swallowed the potion, their laughter echoing with malice as they believed the protagonist's final day had arrived. After drinking the potion, their strength increased greatly, and they rose into the air, surrounded by an intense purple glow that radiated even more power. The young man comes to understand that his opponents wield an enchanted weapon, allowing them to draw in energy and extend their ability to battle. The girls cautioned him to stay alert, pointing out that the villains had just crossed multiple realms in a single move. He smiled with confidence, making it clear that their power did nothing to intimidate him, no matter what they tried. A villain ordered him to be quiet, and then all 3 attackers rushed at him together, unleashing a fierce, coordinated assault. Surrounded by a blaze of golden fire, he questioned the problem with having a conversation as he got ready to strike back. With remarkable speed and power, he unleashes a massive tornado of flames, sending it hurtling toward the villains. The fiery assault triggers a massive blast at the location, sending countless rocks flying through the air from the sheer power of the explosion. The villains, overwhelmed and confused, question the source of the intense force that had just struck them, their faces filled with disbelief as they realize the incredible strength of the young man before them. He discloses his advancement to the nascent soul stage, leaving both girls astonished by this unexpected revelation. He smiled confidently and questioned whether the villains had realized just how great the gap in their strengths truly was. The man declared his intention to set them straight, launching a fierce assault with all his strength. One of the villains quickly understood that victory was impossible for their side, and shouted to his companions that they should fall back. In an effort to get away, the villains hurled a smoke bomb, catching the man off guard with their unexpected move. Frustration etched across his face. He lunged to seize one of his foes, yet the villain vanished into a cloud of smoke, prompting him to shout in vain for the criminal to halt. At the same time, the girls came across an enormous tree, bathed in an eerie blue glow. The girl with pink hair wondered aloud whether they should wait for him, but his wife replied that there was no way to tell when he would return. Her eyes filled with determination, she proposed that they search the area, convinced that it held many valuable items waiting to be found. The fox servant moved closer to the tree, reaching out to sense the energy that flowed from its trunk. Without warning, a radiant core emerged within the tree, and she came to the startling conclusion that something was concealed inside. Shocked by what she saw, his wife questioned in her mind whether it was truly a tree heart, her surprise clearly evident. She mentions that such an occurrence is uncommon, and points out that obtaining the core would significantly boost their cultivation. Without hesitating, she swung her sword at the tree, determined to claim the wooden heart hidden within. The attack bounces harmlessly off a protective shield, leaving the fox servant stunned and unable to comprehend what had just occurred. Still puzzled, his wife remains unsure of what has occurred as the tree's light grows even more intense. A powerful surge of energy hurled her backward, causing the woman with white hair to let out a cry of pain from the forceful blow. The girl with pink hair felt awe as she sensed the strong surge of energy emanating from the massive tree. Out of nowhere, a pair of crimson eyes emerged on the tree's trunk, giving the impression that the tree had come to life in a fit of rage. The tree, its voice menacing, demanded to know who had the nerve to lay a hand on it, fixing the girls with a furious stare. Feeling a flush of embarrassment, his wife offered an apology, explaining that they were unaware the tree was taking a break. The tree declared that, because it had been disturbed from its slumber, the intruders would now be forced to remain with it, with a menacing grin spreading across its face, the tree itself to strike. The roots of the tree suddenly erupted from the earth, forcing the girls to leap backward in order to avoid the powerful assault. Both of them stood frozen in disbelief, uncertain if this place would become their final resting spot. Meanwhile, the girl with pink hair felt overwhelmed by hopelessness as she faced their dire predicament. His wife glances upward, noticing additional roots advancing toward her, ready to strike relentlessly. She raised her sword to shield herself, shouting a desperate warning for the roots to keep their distance as the fight raged on. A single root suddenly surged ahead at a remarkable pace, aiming to ensnare one of the girls in its grasp. The girl with pink hair became entangled in the tree's twisting vines, crying out in agony as her enemies seized her. Entangled in thick vines and pinned to the ground, she lets out a desperate scream, clearly struggling to escape her dire predicament. The fox servant identified the tree and explained through his actions that its sap would gradually consume her as time passed. She adds a caution that should the tree be more than 1,000 years old, nobody present would stand a chance against it in battle. The servant requested permission to attempt the rescue, concentrating her energy in an effort to save the girl. Once she finished, she insisted that they escape immediately. Without warning, she was taken by surprise as a root from the tree struck her squarely in the chest. The man's wife cried out the name of the fox servant with desperation, her eyes wide in disbelief at the shocking sight before her. The tree revealed its awareness of their desire for its core and warned that, from this point on, they would need to battle it just to stay alive. His wife became ensnared by the twisting vines as well, and they hoisted her upside down into the air before she had a chance to respond. Caught within the tangled vines, she senses her strength slipping away and struggles to understand the strange changes overtaking her body. The tree acknowledges her fear, assuring her that there is no way out and encourages her to endure the situation. While underwater, she reflects on the toxic nature of the tree, her awareness gradually slipping away as she begins to lose consciousness. Overwhelmed by panic, she fought against the tightening vines and cried out, begging the tree to release her, unable to endure the suffocating grip any longer. A single vine unfurled a gaping mouth, ready to drain every bit of energy from the girl with white hair. She let out a cry of agony, her mind racing with confusion about the strange sensation, while the vine tightened its grip around her body, pressing down with overwhelming strength. The vine coiled tightly around her leg, and the girl with white hair sensed an unusual power radiating from its touch. As she slipped out of consciousness, a memory surfaced. She recalled a time long ago when she had been with her father in a faraway place. Within her recollection, her father cautioned her that failing to manage her abilities would make her journey far more challenging. Tears streamed down her face as overwhelming despair took hold. She reached out for her father, her pleas lost beneath the swirling darkness that wrapped around her entire body. A single tear traced a path along her cheek, as the white-haired girl appeared overwhelmed by the pain of her memories. Without warning, her eyes lit up with a soft pink shine, and the vine positioned before her started to splinter. A surge of crimson energy bursts around her as she breaks free from the tangled vines, revealing the full extent of her newfound strength. Her eyes, glowing red and filled with menace, fixated on the tree as an intense and frightening energy radiated from her, revealing the depth of her hostility. Gripping a fragment of the shattered vine, she appears determined to take vengeance on the beast. Without hesitating, she rushed directly at the tree, aiming a powerful blow at its face. She herself, with a quick, forceful motion, aiming to strike her formidable adversary head-on. Wearing a sly grin, she struck the tree forcefully, her expression brimming with disdain as she inwardly compared it to a worthless bug. The blow strikes directly, creating a powerful shock against the creature's torso as it advances toward her. The tree let out a cry of agony and clutched its face with a branch, covering the spot where her forceful strike had landed. Standing tall and confident, the young woman herself to press on with the battle, determined to bring down the tree once and for all. She sensed the intertwining of spiritual and yin energies as they moved through her body. A sensation like a fresh surge of life fills the young woman, as though a new breath is awakening within her. The tree, gripped by fear, realizes that she is a demon and desperately pleads for her to halt her assault. Feeling irritated, she wonders aloud whether the tree expects her to give up simply because it confessed to being wrong during their argument. The tree reveals that it once made a vow never to harm the offspring of a mighty figure belonging to the demon clan. The inscription claimed that a well of energy lay hidden behind it, possessing the power to mend injuries and purify the body's pathways. The vibrant blue glow of the energy spring radiated intensely, creating an ideal spot for anyone seeking to regain their strength. A sly grin spread across the white-haired woman's face as she plotted to defeat her target, believing that doing so would allow her to claim both the core and the spring for herself. The tree cautioned her that removing it would rouse the palace guards, leading her to face severe consequences. The woman with white hair comes to understand that she is being truthful, and that she can no longer keep up her present facade. She cautioned the tree to keep others away from her, then made her way toward the source of energy. The young woman carefully settles herself on the rim of the spring, getting ready to slip into the water so she can tend to her wounds. After sipping the clear spring water, she noticed an unusual yet pleasantly invigorating feeling spreading through her body. Her cheeks flushed as she remarked that the water tasted excellent, explaining that it felt as though something silky had enveloped her tongue. Overcome by the heat, she begins removing her clothes, appearing to relish the coolness of the spring water. She imagined that, had the main character been present, she would have wanted to taste the spring water alongside him. The young woman removes her remaining clothing, before getting ready to immerse herself fully in the spring's water. She observes that the area buzzes with vitality, realizing that the water has the power to mend injuries and alter the properties of the pill. As she stepped into the water, a joyful exclamation escaped her lips, overwhelmed by how wonderfully cool and invigorating the sensation felt against her skin. Both of the other girls lay unconscious near the spring's edge, leaving her to relax and savor the water by herself. Without warning, a group of monkeys burst onto the scene, leaping energetically from the tree branches and causing a loud disturbance. The group seized the girls' clothing, causing the fox servant to jolt awake, clearly unsettled by the monkey's baffled reaction. Both of them tumbled into the water, and the woman with white hair let out a startled scream as she plunged in unexpectedly. The two girls, feeling, let out startled screams as they splashed in the water, and the scene concluded with an undeniably humorous moment. His wife smiled warmly and waved at the two girls, leaving them stunned and blushing as they stood in the water. The girl recalled the instant her abilities first emerged, allowing her to effortlessly escape from the tree's grasping vines. She revealed that a sudden surge of strength had rushed through her, which allowed her to overcome the tree and discover the source of energy. The girl with pink hair questioned in her mind whether this strange force was the one that had seized her before. As they soaked in the warm water alongside the monkeys, they chose to set their concerns aside and leave their worries for another time. Unexpectedly, one of the small monkeys began to splash water toward the girls, leaving them puzzled about the situation. The creature's eyes sparkle with mischief, as it cleverly exploits the circumstances surrounding them in the spring. He sent another burst of water flying, causing both of them to shriek at his mischievous trick, while the monkey doubled over with laughter. Both of them, irritated by the creature's audacity, landed a punch and launched him high into the air, sending him soaring into the distance. The setting shifted, revealing the main character coming back after capturing two of the villains, while noting that a third had successfully escaped. The system himmed that the mission was nearly complete, causing him to panic over the affinity points he had lost. The woman with red hair gazed at him, clearly amazed by the strength he showed at such a young age. She finds herself convinced that his incredible strength and unshakable composure could only belong to someone specially chosen by the heavens. The hero's cheeks flushed with excitement as he gazed at the pair, thinking they were truly a remarkable sight. He lets out a small cough, hoping to hide his reaction, and explains that the men responsible for the attack have already been dealt with. Both individuals turned toward him, their faces lighting up with astonishment and appreciation for the assistance he had offered. The young man bids farewell, explaining that he must leave to pursue his path within the palace. Left by himself, he believed all his hard work had been pointless and felt an urgent need to return to his wife and the rest of the group as soon as possible. The girl with red hair expressed her gratitude to him, and then, with an easygoing tone, wondered if he wanted someone to join him on his journey. They approached and clarified that, within their sect, it was common practice for women to cultivate alongside one another. The young man quickly withdraws his hands and firmly rejects the offer, making it clear that he has no interest in accepting such a thing. He immediately clarifies that he is already married and has no intention of being involved with anyone else. He bluntly pointed out their lack of strength and suggested they return to the first floor for additional training. The main character reunited with his companions and informed them that they would keep training and growing stronger as a team. After 4 days went by, he gathered his blue energy, readying himself to create a portal and continue on his journey. During this time, he devoted himself to meditation and intense training, all while a menacing, fiery energy seemed to surround him. He opened his eyes with determination, unveiling the strange and incredible power he had just acquired through cultivation. After finishing, he notices that both his wife and the other girl appear noticeably more powerful as well. With a cheerful grin, he observed that everyone's cultivation had advanced and announced that they would now proceed to the 3rd floor. At the same time, on the building's 2nd floor, a strange being released a wicked, echoing laugh. The final villain to make their escape noted with relief that they had been fortunate not to encounter any threatening creatures in the area. Suddenly, a monster appeared and seized him, causing the young man to grumble about his terrible luck. The creature operated an unusual gadget, draining energy from the bald man as an odd purple glow surrounded them both. Surrounded by a surge of energy, the man cried out in agony, yet his determination remained unbroken as he silently vowed that this injustice would not go unpunished. He underwent a transformation and vowed that the protagonist would soon deeply regret ever crossing his path. The transformed villain, consumed by rage, declared in a booming voice that the time had come for everyone to witness who possessed real strength. A display popped up, revealing the team's strength, and it was clear from the numbers that the main character possessed remarkable abilities. The display revealed that the girls' cultivation levels had significantly improved during their time inside. The group reached a portal, where he explained that their way to the third level lay beyond it. His wife, growing wary, folded her arms and questioned him about the source of his knowledge. He quickly invents a story, claiming his father mentioned the location, but she immediately recognizes that he isn't telling the truth. The main character moved ahead, surrounded by a shimmering blue glow, fully prepared to walk through the portal. As they walked into the bustling marketplace, he observed that, similar to what was described in the book, 3 demons were secretly lurking nearby. As the group made their way through the bustling market, a vendor approached and presented them with roasted rabbit meat. A man walked up to the main character and urged him to sample the dishes offered at his food stall. The vendor encourages him to sample the product, assuring him there's no need to be hesitant, even if he doesn't plan on making a purchase. Despite their persistent urging, the protagonist firmly declined, explaining that his wife was unable to eat it due to her pregnancy. With a reassuring smile, he picked up the skewer and took a bite, assuring his wife through his actions that she had nothing to worry about, as he was willing to taste it on her behalf. The fox servant's eyes filled with tears as the situation unfolded, leaving the pink-haired girl puzzled by the sudden outburst. The fox girl, with tears streaming down her face, expressed her distress about how adorable rabbits were, insisting that their cuteness made it impossible for her to consider them as food. The girl with pink hair took a bite of her meal, savoring the taste. She remarked inwardly about how flavorful the food was, while also noting that one of the people present displayed remarkable courage. Without warning, a digital display appeared, announcing a fresh task: release 20 souls to earn a prize. He felt puzzled as he tried to understand why the system kept assigning him strange tasks involving souls. Without warning, a woman with striking purple hair leaps down from a rooftop and dashes toward the gathered group. A girl dashed forward in a state of panic, pleading for assistance as a group of masked pursuers closed in behind her. The protagonist's wife moved quickly to the front, delivering a powerful kick that knocked one of them to the ground. The woman rushed forward and collapsed into the hero's embrace, her body trembling as she expressed her overwhelming fear about what was happening. His wife and the other girl glare at her, their expressions cold as they demand an explanation for her actions. The girl with pink hair gently tugs her companion aside, her expression curious as she wonders if her friend is unaware of the unspoken boundaries that exist between boys and girls. The protagonist's cheeks turned bright red as she realized she was blushing even while reprimanding the others. The woman expressed her gratitude, revealed that she owned a tavern close by, and extended an invitation for everyone to visit her establishment. With a mischievous grin, the protagonist's wife gestures for her to go ahead and take the lead. The woman pretends to be unable to move, claiming that she has injured her leg and requesting that the protagonist carry her on his back. The white-haired wife dismissed the offer, insisting that she would handle things on her own and reassuring that her husband didn't need to be involved. Ultimately, after purchasing a donkey, the woman with purple hair climbed onto its back, much to the hero's growing frustration. As the protagonist moved alongside the animal, he questioned in his mind the reason he continued to guide the woman by holding her hand. Both his wife and the other girl observed the situation, agreeing among themselves that having her nearby was helpful for noticing anyone acting suspiciously. The girl with pink hair gazes far ahead and notices the rabbit vendor, whose smile appears unusually strange. The protagonist, sensing something suspicious about the rabbit meat, takes out a purification card in response. He observed his friend's unusual behavior and began to feel anxious, realizing that he was down to his last card. When they reached the tavern, the woman with purple hair offered them a meal to show her gratitude. The young man glanced warily around the vast space, his mind searching for any sign of wandering spirits that might be hidden within its expanse. His wife leaned in, her voice low as she confided her unease and urged him to remain alert. The woman with purple hair's hands began to emit a radiant light as she prepared herself to draw something forth. The woman summoned the other girls, instructing them to make sure the guests were thoroughly entertained. From behind the curtain, 3 young women stepped into view, each preparing themselves for an important performance that awaited them. The girls introduced themselves by sharing their names with the group that was observing them. The group begins to dance and perform upbeat music, captivating the audience with their energetic show. The main character eagerly lifted their drink, their enthusiasm clear, and urged everyone to continue the lively music and dancing. The tavern owner believed the young man had been fooled by their performance, yet the young man quietly slipped something into his own glass. Without warning, the young man reached for his wife, pulling her close as they collapsed onto the ground together, acting as if they had both become lightheaded. He collapsed onto the bed, with a white-haired woman sprawled across him, seemingly unconscious. The young woman with white hair gazes at him, her cheeks tinged with red, as if something unusual has taken hold of her senses. As she observed him more closely, she realized that the young man's features were quite striking and attractive. Without warning, the woman with white hair senses that something isn't right, and a look of shock spreads across her face. Her cheeks flushed, and a thin line of drool escaping her lips. She appeared utterly dazed from the effects of the alcohol. He slowly blinked awake, a gentle smile spreading across his face, and wondered aloud if his wife had finished watching him sleep. Still reeling from surprise, she let out a scream and demanded an explanation, bewildered that he was not intoxicated as she had expected. The young woman's anger flared as the man urged her to settle down, assuring her that his actions were meant to divert the attention of the watchful old witch. The girl with white hair narrowed her eyes in frustration, echoing the insult that had just been hurled at her. He reveals that the 3 have concealed their presence and are secretly devising a scheme targeting the group. His wife pays close attention, realizing that they intend to approach in order to carry out their scheme. The young man decides that he will secretly enter the woman's room during the night in hopes of finding additional clues. Concerned, she pointed out that he had eaten the meat, but he reassured her by revealing that he had secretly spit every bite out. He glanced up with certainty, explaining that he had already come up with a flawless strategy to enter the woman's room. The story shifts to the tavern owner's private quarters, where she makes her way inside at a measured pace. The main character found himself changed into a paintbrush and felt a surge of pride, believing he had outsmarted everyone by taking on such an unremarkable form. The woman moved toward the table, causing the paintbrush to feel curious about her intentions. She lifted him off the ground, causing him to momentarily panic as the fear of being caught rushed through his mind. But relief soon followed when he reasoned that there was no way she could have discovered his secret. The tavern owner perched on the edge of the bed, a paintbrush resting in her hand as her expression grew contemplative. She gazes at the object with an unusual look on her face, leaving him to silently question what she might be intending. It occurs to the woman that she hasn't been with a man for quite some time, and she feels the loneliness of each long night spent by herself. She picks up a paintbrush and begins to sweep it across her skin, prompting him to suspect that her actions are driven by a deep sense of desperation. The young man returned to his usual form and accidentally collapsed onto the woman, admitting that his excitement had caused him to transform unexpectedly. Feeling a sense of urgency, he offers an apology, admitting that the magical atmosphere of the evening had caused him to lose control. The woman shouted for him to halt, her voice filled with anger, and the hero, startled by her outburst, quickly fled the scene. She offers him a place to stay for the night, thinking that the young knight could use some company. The young man shakes his head, determined, thinking about how his wife is waiting for him at home, and knowing that he must not arrive late. He reaches for the door, attempting to leave, but the woman quickly secures the lock, blocking every effort he makes to escape the room. She exposed her true identity as a demoness and questioned his eagerness to depart so quickly. The woman, filled with anger, questions whether the hero dislikes her company, while the hero becomes aware of the strength she possesses. Without warning, the protagonist's wife bursts through the door, rushing into the room in a desperate attempt to rescue him. She realized that something must have occurred, noticing how much longer it was taking him to return. The fox servant arrived with another girl, both expressing concern that something was amiss with their friend. The woman with pink hair expressed her discomfort with the heat, while the young man and his wife exchanged puzzled glances, trying to figure out what had caused her distress. Wearing a wicked grin, the demoness informs them that their effort to reach this place will be rewarded with an extra bonus. Seething with anger, the protagonist demanded to know what the villain had done to his friend, but the villain merely responded with mocking laughter. The demoness reveals that the girl consumed rabbit meat teeming with worm eggs. The villain declared that the girl would soon be under her control, just like a puppet, and warned that everyone present would face the same destiny. The young man realizes that everyone else who attempted to reach the third floor vanished because of her actions. He instructed the fox servant to look after the girl with pink hair and make sure she was safely escorted away from the area. The young woman with vibrant pink hair let out a cry of agony as a servant rushed to her side, attempting to steady her and lessen the impact of whatever was causing her distress. The protagonist instructed his wife to look after the other two, deciding to confront the villain himself. The demoness looked down on him, doubting that someone so powerless could possibly pose a threat to her. The villain demonstrated her strength by forcefully stomping on the ground, signaling that she was ready to launch her attack. Bathed in a shimmering purple aura, the woman lunged toward the young man, her lips curled into a sinister grin. The hero swiftly avoided the attack, leaving the baffled and unable to grasp how the event had unfolded. He shifted with unusual agility, effortlessly evading every strike she aimed at him. The villain's face twisted with rage as she clenched her teeth, frustrated by her failure to land a blow during the battle. The young man turned to his wife, concern etched across his face, wanting to know if she was unharmed after her recent victory over one of the other girls. Wearing an expression of arrogance, she pressed her foot down on one of the women and declared that none of them could possibly compete with her strength. The villain announced that the excitement was only beginning and used their powers to manipulate one of the girls who had already been defeated. The girls rose to their feet, surrounded by a mysterious purple glow, while the young man's wife looked on in confusion, trying to understand the strange scene unfolding before her. The system refreshes its objectives, and at last he realizes the true meaning behind liberating the souls. He reveals that the corpses are controlled like marionettes, manipulated by the villain who turns stolen souls into deadly tools. Wearing a wicked grin, the demonist explained that endless fighting would be pointless, since the puppets could never be destroyed. The villain admitted that during their previous encounter, he had only managed to avoid her attacks by sheer luck. With every ounce of power she possessed, she unleashed a surge of purple energy, directing it straight at the young man. Wearing a determined expression, the protagonists themselves to confront the overwhelming force of the attack. The young man narrowly avoided the strike by flipping backward, while the force of the attack smashed the floor where he had just stood. The villain stared in disbelief, clearly stunned that his opponent had managed to evade the attack once more. A bead of sweat slid down the demoness's cheek as anxiety tightened her chest, making her swallow hard in response to the tense moment. The main character scrunched up his face and playfully poked his tongue out toward the antagonist, clearly teasing her. The demoness, her anger barely contained, demanded to know if his only skill was avoiding fights and fleeing from danger. The villain rose into the air alongside her puppets, getting ready to launch an attack with them as a team. His wife explains that only 3 people have reached the 4th stage of the Golden Core. The villain's lips curled into a wicked grin as he remarked on his fortune at discovering a half-demon. The system displayed her demonization level, leaving the young man stunned by how high the number was. Bathed in a crimson glow, she declares that any puppets must be eliminated. He halted her actions, clarifying that destroying the puppets would cause the souls imprisoned within to disappear forever. The villain lunged ahead, declaring that the women should remain unharmed, insisting that the fate of the men was of no concern. His wife exuding confidence, herself to confront the advancing puppets. She launched herself at the girls, questioning in her mind whether they truly believed they stood a chance against her. A puppet suddenly lunged at her from behind, its tentacle reaching out in an attempt to take her off guard. The protagonist moves quickly, positioning himself between the danger and his cherished wife, shielding her from harm as he intercepts the attack. Frightened, she wonders aloud about his well-being, noticing that the young man is clearly suffering from the impact. He smiled, assuring her that all was well, and explained that he felt responsible for keeping her safe from harm. The system hymned that his bond had grown stronger, granting him a formidable new sword as a reward. The puppets lay sprawled across the floor, their movements stilled, clearly too exhausted to continue resisting. The villain watched as his wife began to levitate, curiosity filling his mind as he tried to guess her intentions. She drew the puppet's energy into herself, feeling her body surge with newfound strength. The young man stared in disbelief, his mind racing as he tried to figure out when she had acquired the ability to draw in spiritual energy. The demoness cried out in desperation, urging her to halt, fearing that draining all the energy would render the puppets powerless. He clarifies that her reliance on energy to control the puppets leaves her attacks lacking in strength. The demoness flashed a wicked grin, confident that defeating him would require little effort on her part. The villain herself for a devastating assault, declaring confidently that she no longer needed to restrain her strength in the upcoming battle. From above, she lunged with determination, urging the protagonist to finish the conflict decisively. The young man swiftly moves out of the way, causing the powerful strike to slam into the ground instead. He gazed at her with a stern expression, questioning whether she truly believed he would be fooled by such a blatant attempt. He picked up his newly acquired sword, thinking to himself that this moment was the perfect opportunity to try out the weapon for the first time. The hero lunged forward, brandishing his sword engulfed in flames, determined to strike at the demoness. Pursued across the ground, the villain stared in disbelief at his opponent's incredible strength, completely baffled by where such power came from. She immediately identified the sword, curiosity sparking within her about his ability to harness pure yin energy and the mystery surrounding his true identity. He aimed his sword at her, declaring his intent to end her life as retribution for the innocent who had suffered. The demoness's face twisted with fury as she clenched her teeth, her anger clearly visible. She let out a laugh and remarked that humans had always shown her kind no mercy, stripping them of everything they had. The system informed him that the mission had been successfully finished, granting him entry to a newly unlocked feature. Without warning, red energy swirled around the young man's wife, causing her to writhe in agony. Still reeling from surprise, he hurried over to her side, desperate to understand what was happening to the woman he cherished so deeply. The demoness let out a laugh, as she revealed that her frail body was unable to withstand the powerful demonic energy flowing from the puppets. Feeling a surge of desperation, he scoops her up into his arms. Meanwhile, the villain mocks them, confidently predicting that she will soon be covered in wounds and bleeding from every part of her body. He promises to rescue her from that place and assures her that together, they will search for a doctor who can help her recover. The young man scooped her up into his arms and sprinted toward a glowing portal, intent on escaping the palace together. Clutching his wife tightly, he sprang backward, determined to evade the villain who chased after them. The rabbit vendor suddenly emerged, questioning the protagonist about his destination and the reason for his rush. The man lunged at him, forcing him to defend himself, while the system urgently instructed him to place his wife inside the spatial ring for safety. A system bird revealed that time moved at a slower pace in that place compared to the world outside. The young man gripped his blazing sword, readying himself to confront the enigmatic vendor. The man claimed to possess items of great worth and threatened that, Once he finished with his target, he would seize everything for himself. The demoness found the young man peculiar because he possessed both the sword and cultivation. The man's sinister grin widened as he remarked that fate had not favored the hero by bringing them together at that place. He lunges forward, curiosity flickering in his mind as he tries to predict how the young man will wield such a formidable sword. Deprived of the dragon spirit, the man believes the sword becomes nothing more than a worthless hunk of metal. The main character deftly, the man strikes using their sword, and soon the pair became locked in a fierce battle. He swung his blazing sword at his enemy, but the villain quickly hurled knives to block the strike. The vendor stared in disbelief at the young man's strength, puzzled as he tried to figure out what sort of technique had just been used. He proceeded to call forth the spirit of the dragon, confidently challenging anyone who doubted his ability to do so. In another location, the main hero and his companions sensed the presence of the dragon's powerful energy, causing them all to jump in surprise. The master instructs everyone to search for the entrance quickly, so they can escape that place without delay. Both the and the vendor stared in disbelief, as the hero called forth the powerful spirit of a dragon. The man questioned in his mind how he had managed to call forth the spirit despite possessing such limited cultivation abilities. Terrified, he drops to his knees, pleading for mercy as he holds out the key that grants access to the third level. The demoness shouted, making sure he remembered the mark she had put on him before, which he had overlooked. The young man, clearly puzzled, wonders aloud about the meaning behind her words and the strange mark now visible on his forehead. The man reveals that their predicament stems from a curse cast upon them by the ancestor, who once ruled the underground palace. The demoness remembered with sorrow how the ancestor had destroyed every member of her serpent race. She explains that he doomed them to guard the palace for eternity and placed a curse upon them. The man revealed a key, explaining that the curse would be broken if they did not survive. He passed the key to her, suggesting there had to be some method to escape the trap. The protagonist wonders aloud about the method to lift the curse that has been cast upon them. The man states that they must claim the inheritance and lay the ancestors' remains to rest. Believing he could use the circumstances to his benefit, the young man saw an opportunity to secure 2 wins at once. He offered them a deal, promising to remove the curse and let them go unharmed if they accepted his terms. The two, filled with anger, insisted that he had no right to set any terms for them. The hero leveled his sword at the demoness, his gaze hardening into a stern and daunting glare. He gave them a choice, either continue living or face removal. Faced with this ultimatum, both individuals accepted his offer. The man clarified that an agreement was in place, and once he completed his responsibilities, the contract would take effect. The young man declared that the others would serve him, warning that any act of treachery would result in their demise. He proceeded to seal a blood pact with both of them, causing a fiery symbol to materialize on their brows. The glowing marks signified that the pair had now become official servants, dedicated to the palace's main figure. Glowing symbols illuminated their skin as both individuals fixed their gazes on the young man, their faces reflecting a mix of respect and solemnity. The hero inquires about the whereabouts of the other demon that had been referenced earlier during the battle. The man explains that the fox servant was overwhelmed by a burst of energy and is still in the process of recovering. He recalls the rabbit girl and comes to understand that she holds a significant place in the main plot. The young man remembered how, in the tale, she experienced a sudden burst of energy that nearly led to her being discovered. The reveals that his body can generate endless amounts of energy. He smiled as he explained that he had shared some of his own energy to aid in her recovery. He believed that, accompanied by his group, they were nearing their primary goal. The young man, accompanied by his newly acquired servants, approached the entrance. He informed them that the inheritance had always remained unclaimed by anyone before. The demoness wondered aloud whether the man truly placed his trust in the young newcomer, but the man replied that circumstances left them with no other option. Inside the room, the fox servant carefully helps the pink-haired girl swallow the antidote. He instructs the servant to escort the girl outside, assuring them that they will proceed to the next stage at a later time. Within the vast expanse of the heavens, the young man's wife rested, encircled by a shadowy aura. She rises, her movements filled with that same ominous energy, as if she is completely under the other's influence. Without warning, the main character emerged, moving toward her with concern etched deeply across his face. He placed his hands gently around her waist, leaving the white-haired girl looking bewildered by what was happening. The young man warns that the surplus energy might be dangerous to her, and assures her that he intends to assist in eliminating it. Both of their cheeks reddened as they locked eyes, while the girl appeared lost in a daze, captivated by the moment. Surprised, she quickly shoves him aside and demands to know why he is there with her right then. He smiled warmly, explaining that he was assisting her in releasing the surplus spiritual energy. The woman gazes at the crimson energy hovering before her, her expression revealing unexpected astonishment. A gentle heat spreads through her body as a surge of energy begins to gather in her chest. He moved nearer to her, inquiring whether she was experiencing any heat within her body or a sense of weakness. He smiled warmly and assured her that if she called him her dear husband, he would support her as she healed. Furious wife questioned his sanity, clearly shocked by his outrageous request. She fixes the young man with a sharp, annoyed stare, her frustration over the situation clearly visible on her face. The woman with white hair stumbles and collapses onto the floor, sharp pain coursing through her body. He explained that he would not pressure her, but cautioned that unless she unblocked her meridians, her ability to cultivate would come to an end. Feeling flustered, she refers to him as her beloved husband, which overwhelms him so much that his nose starts to bleed with excitement. His wife stretched out on the grass, asking him to pause for a moment before they moved on. Without warning, the young woman with white hair let out a piercing scream, her face twisted in clear agony. The system hymned that their bond had grown stronger, rewarding him with a card that allowed him to switch his clothing. Holding the card, he believes that growing closer to her will open up more chances for them to connect. The young man rose to his feet and announced that it was time for them to proceed to the last stage of the underground palace. Within the city's boundaries, the main character and his companion stepped out from a glowing blue portal, their arrival marked by a flash of light. The rabbit vendor returned to the street, presenting his food to the crowd gathered there. The mentor of the story's main character picked up a skewer, mentioning that he had been feeling quite hungry. The second young man held out the skewer, extending it toward the main character, who looked at him with a hint of distrust in his gaze. A sudden gleam flashed in his eyes as he unexpectedly discovered that the vendor was, in fact, a demon. The vendor let out a cheerful laugh, admitting that he had not anticipated encountering such a variety of fascinating people that year. Without warning, the former main character is overcome by an odd sensation. Gripping his stomach tightly, he lets out a sharp cry of pain. His friend grabs hold of him with concern, trying to understand what is wrong, while the young man doubles over in intense pain. The vendor let out a laugh, declaring that the price was 1,000, then revealed that the old larva had already entered the man and would soon transform him into a puppet. Wrapped in a shimmering purple aura, the demoness admired the craftsmanship of the rabbit vendor's creations, offering words of praise for his skill. Wearing a wicked grin, the ancestor announces his intention to harvest their souls in order to craft new puppets. The protagonist's sword shimmered with a blue light, as he himself for the approaching fight. He moves ahead, preparing himself to confront the villains that have just shown up. The young man arrived at the last stage, where he discovered the ancestor's remains resting atop a throne constructed from bones. The spirit of the ancestor materialized, revealing that he had failed the test and was now required to depart. The protagonist's eyes flashed with defiance, as he wondered aloud what consequences might follow if he chose not to comply. Gripping his scythe tightly, the ancestor himself to launch a powerful, energy-charged assault against the young man. The spirit, filled with rage, demanded that the hero leave immediately and launched a full-force attack against him. As their weapons met, an immense surge of energy burst forth from the impact of their blades. The ancestor swung his scythe, summoning a dark, shadowy figure that lunged toward the young man. The main character swiftly evaded the attack, allowing the dark figure's strike to miss him completely as it swept past. The spirit declares that he is undeserving of his inheritance, explaining that his failure to overcome the guardians has proven his unworthiness. The young man revealed a card, confidently expressing that he could win the fight without relying on his technique. Surrounded by blazing energy, he acknowledges the old man's impressive strength, yet secretly holds on to a clever plan he intends to use. The ancestor gazes at the young man in shock, unable to accept the incredible display of strength unfolding before his eyes. The spirit rushed forward, wielding his scythe, while accusing the young man of concealing his true power in order to gain access to the palace. The main character raises his sword just in time to deflect the incoming strike, then readies himself to launch a swift counterattack. The young man drove his foot forcefully into the ground, causing the floor beneath him to crack apart as he himself to act again. With a swift motion, he launched a powerful kick at the ancestor, the impact so strong that it sent the elder hurtling through the air. The ancestor's spirit slammed into the wall with great force, immediately followed by a powerful explosion that shook the surroundings. The villain's face twisted in agony as they stared in disbelief at the unexpected power the protagonist displayed during the fight. The spirit floated upward, its form glowing with a deep purple light, giving the impression that it was getting ready to launch another assault. The young man kept his eyes fixed on the scene, his attention sharp as he anticipated what the ancestor would do next in the ongoing battle. The hero's eyes burned with determination as they themselves to press on in the fight, resolved to overcome the spirit. The protagonist suddenly emerges behind the villain, seizing his neck firmly with a powerful grip. The ancestor pleaded desperately for freedom, offering his treasured technique in exchange for being spared. The young man smiled and reminded him that he had already explained there was no need for his technique. The spirit clenched his jaw, silently questioning the protagonist's intentions for bringing him to that place. As the power card lost its energy, the ancestor himself to strike, positioning himself alongside his ally to confront the young man. Holding the scythe, he thought to himself that the height of such strength was actually quite underwhelming. The spirit united with its physical form atop the throne, sending waves of purple energy spreading across the surroundings. The ancestor's form began to shift, and he declared that, after 4 centuries, a visitor had at last appeared. The protagonist stared in disbelief at the villain's new form, struggling to comprehend how such a transformation had occurred. The ancestor reveals that the elderly man remains alive, leaving the young man taken aback by this unexpected news. The villain extended his hand, gathering a surge of purple energy as he himself to strike at the hero. The young man swiftly moves out of the way, allowing the burst of energy to streak past him harmlessly during the battle. The burst of energy morphed into the shape of a scythe and arced back toward the protagonist. The ancestor grabbed his weapon, recognizing it as a familiar companion that had finally found its way back to him. Using the Scythian hand, he unleashed his real strength, allowing a surge of purple energy to fill the entire area. The young man feels confused as he notices the story drifting far from how it was originally written. The ancestor reflects that the young man's arrival at that particular time could be seen as either fortunate or unfortunate. He called forth an enormous skeleton, explaining that only a small amount of his divine consciousness remained. The hero's expression burned with frustration as he insisted that he had guarded this place for hundreds of years. The skeleton claimed that the young man had arrived seeking the immortal seal, ridiculing him with a sneer. The villain feels a renewed sense of hope for his wicked schemes upon seeing the hero appear. The ancestor's eyes burn with resolve as he turns toward the young man, readying himself to strike. The main character stands surrounded by blazing flames, gathering strength in anticipation of the ultimate showdown. After the skeleton was shattered, the ancestor announced that the way to immortality had now become accessible. The young man thinks to himself that the old man is quite daring to believe he could gain control of his body. Burning with rage, the ancestor lunged at the hero, unleashing a surge of intense purple energy in a fierce attempt to strike. The villain unleashed a surge of dark water that drew the surrounding air away from the protagonist, leaving them struggling to breathe. The man explains that the youth will soon suffocate, unable to break free from that lethal move. The ancestor stared in disbelief, realizing that the hero had somehow evaded his assault. Surrounded by flames, the young man reflects on how significant chances in life often arrive hand in hand with serious risks. His eyes blazed with anger as he demanded to know what the ancestor had just spoken.